Hello and welcome to Merryweather Knitting. My name is Gabriella and I'm coming to you from my home in Germany, where I'm so excited to chat with you today about knitting and crafting and actually quite a bit of sewing, which is unusual for me, something totally brand new, so stay tuned for that if you're interested. As usual, everything will be time stamped below so you can click through if you want to find something specific or skip over a part of the video. You can do that. I am here with my delicious cup of tea, and I hope that you'll also get yourself something delicious to drink, maybe a project to work on, and just join me for the next few minutes as we catch up a little bit. I'd love to hear what you're working on right now, what you're inspired by, what crafts you're working on, whether it be fiber crafts or textile-based crafts or anything else, what you've been up to in the kitchen. For me, I think the kitchen is also another place that I very much like to express my creativity, so I'm always inspired if I hear about new recipes or new kind of culinary endeavors that people are going on. But I'm going to start with knitting today and just share with you the projects I've had on the needles. I have just two main projects to share with you and another little plan, because I feel like I haven't been that prolific lately in my knitting, but I've been enjoying my knitting so much. I've really been loving the projects I've been working on. I've been loving the process, and it's just been so much fun. So this will be a familiar piece for those of you who have watched this podcast before, but the first one I have to show you is my little butterfly Brambles pullover sweater top. It's actually kind of like a t-shirt top. It's just a simple yoked kind of top pattern that I'm kind of thinking up on my own. This is the first time I've ever attempted just designing a little sweater or top or garment for myself, and it's been such an adventure, the process of figuring out how one goes about choosing the right, just choosing the right needles, not the right needles, the right stitch counts, doing all the calculations based on a swatch, and then thinking up motifs, because I wanted it to be a very simple, very basic kind of a top with a little bit of interest in texture, a little bit of whimsy, a little bit of natural inspiration. I'm very inspired by nature, and so I was just inspired thinking about and anticipating the warmer months, anticipating even summertime, and knowing I wanted something to wear in the late summer months. And one thing that I always think about in those late summer months are butterflies, beautiful butterflies, and gorgeous lush flowers and bushes, and the little butterflies as they fly and flutter through and perch on those bushes. We've been seeing butterflies lately here in Germany because spring has certainly sprung, and it's just so fun. I'm a really big fan of butterflies right now, so that's why this is the Butterflies in Brambles top. They're a little tiny mini butterfly lace, kind of little bits of lace between some wandering bramble textural design, which I really like. I really like how this has turned out, and I'm loving the feel of this yarn, the feel of this kind of just the gauge of this top. It feels really good. I love the drape. I love that it's not too loose, but it's also not too heavy and dense. I'm knitting this out of Drops Baumwolle yarn, which is a cotton and linen blend yarn, which is really exciting. It's the first time I've ever worked with a plant-based yarn for a garment, and I was inspired by Martina of the We Girl Wild channel, and she is hosting a knit along called the Welcome Spring Cal, and I was just so inspired by all of her plant-based yarn projects and her idea for that knit along, so I decided to jump on, and this is my project for the knit along, this little top, and I loved it. Loved following along on the hashtag for that knit along and seeing what other people are knitting with plant-based yarns. I definitely will be knitting more with plant-based yarns in the future, especially for springy, summery, warmer month garments and accessories. I just think it's so wonderful and so exciting to have kind of a completely new category of fiber, of natural fiber to work with in my knitting practice, because I love wool and I love I really love silk. I love animal protein-based fibers, but I also think it's so cool to incorporate a little bit of these plant-based fibers too. I think that it's also a little bit less fussy when it comes to care, I think, which I'm really excited about, just wearing this and being able to wash it, hand wash it in the washing machine. And I know that there are definitely wools and yarns that one can do that with, but unless it's superwash, I just don't do that very much. I don't really risk hand washing in my machine. I always kind of soak and block, or don't even wash my knitted garments at all if they're 100% wool. I find that it's pretty unnecessary often to wash them. But yeah, I'm just so excited about this top, and it's been such a fun knit. I'm just now finishing the body. I had a little bit of a block for a while because I wasn't sure exactly how to calculate how many stitches I needed to separate for the sleeves. And that was just a totally new realm for me, and I just didn't feel like doing the research for a few days or maybe a week or so. And then finally I kind of sat down and did some calculations and just figured it out. It was not hard. It was really okay. But it just took me a block. And once I had that figured out, it was easy sailing, smooth sailing for the rest of this little bit, because it's a pretty cropped length, so it's not very long. But it's also not super, super cropped. Right now, we'll see how it wears, because obviously you can't really always tell just by holding it up to yourself. You really do need to try it on. Obviously it gets stretched out a little bit in the 3D form. So yeah, I'm just binding off as we speak, basically. This is the bound off edge here so far. I just have some twisted rib, which I really like. I have also noticed that plant-based yarn responds differently to texture and just has a very different texture itself. The stitches are super, super defined. There's really good stitch definition with this yarn, but that also means that you see every little tiny little mistake or every little irregularity. And I actually think that that's charming and beautiful, but it's also not what I'm used to from working with 100% non-superwash wools, or alpaca, which is kind of has this little light halo often and kind of masks any little imperfections in one's gauge or tension, or if you accidentally split a stitch or something, you definitely see that with this yarn. But I don't mind that. It also makes the texture look really unique and really beautiful, which I love. So that's my first project. I hope that next episode I will be able to show this to you in its full finished glory. Maybe I'll even be wearing it. I really hope that's the case. I think it should be, because after binding this off, I just am going to, I think, knit a few rows and make just little tiny sleeves. I don't want them to be very long. I really want it to be a little t-shirt summery top. So yeah, that's my first project, my butterfly and brambles sweater top. I'm still not sure about the name, but it's just for me, so yeah, I'll think about it. I definitely think having a name for a pattern or a project is something that I really enjoy, and it really is in a way important to me, because I don't know, it just carries with it a certain kind of romanticism. There's just something beautiful about having associations or a little bit of a story or a narrative kind of in your own imagination when it comes to something you wear. I feel that way pretty much about every item of clothing I own, every pair of shoes, and certainly everything that I knit and hand make. It just enriches the process and makes it really fun for me to wear. I also love vintage and secondhand clothes for that reason too, because I think they often carry with them a little bit of history, and I just love that. So next I'm going to share with you this is just very briefly because I haven't finished this sock, but I'm still working on my Moon River socks, which is another design of my very own, and I'm loving it. I really haven't done very much here, just turned the heel. I think I even turned the heel last time already, so I don't think I really have maybe done one repeat. But I love these socks. They're so beautiful, and I was about to say, I don't know why I haven't continued knitting on them very much, but I do actually know why, and that's because I've been very preoccupied with other things, which you'll see later on. But I'm really wanting to knit on these more, and I think they're just so beautiful and so much fun, and I love, love, love this pattern. It's going to be so much fun to wear them. Okay, so that was probably the shortest really work in progress knitting segment that I've ever had in all of my Merryweather knitting episodes. So yeah, that's a bit like unusual for me, but I guess I haven't been knitting so much, but I really wanted to just chat with you about a couple of other things. And one of them is a plan for a knitted piece, a project that is coming soon. As soon as I'm finished with my little top, I'm going to be casting this on right away. I've kind of been resisting casting this off because casting this on my next project, which now you see the colorway, because I want to do one thing after the other. I really like having just a couple projects on the needles right now. I'm not like, I think having too many at once for me right now would be a little overwhelming. There are other times where that's not the case, that I like to jump around and just hop from project to project. But right now I'm kind of needing that mental space. So yeah, I'm waiting to cast off the other garment before I start a new one, especially one for myself. So this is the colorway, as I just showed you, that I'm going to be, and the yarn that I'm going to be using for my next project. And it is some Knit Picks Wool of the Andes yarn, which I have had in my stash for a couple of months, but has been sitting for a long time in my grandmother's stash. I think this is actually all the yarn she had, maybe a little bit more. She actually gave me a couple of other balls of yarn as well, which I have. But about 8 years ago, I want to say 8 or 9 years ago, my grandmother wanted to learn to knit, and she kind of knew how to knit like a little bit, knit stitch, and she kind of, yeah, she knew a little bit about knitting. And she saw me knitting a lot. At that time, I was just really enjoying knitting a ton of socks and shawls, and she asked me if I would kind of help her and figure out with her maybe some yarn to buy in a project or something. And I think that we found a simple kind of a sweater or pullover project, or cardigan or something. Maybe it was for, I don't know if it was going to be for her, to knit for herself, or if she wanted to knit for one of her grandchildren or her daughters. My grandmother has 4 children. My mother is her oldest child, and then she has, I think 20 or 21 grandchildren with all of my siblings and my cousins and I. So she has a lot of people who she could have knit it for. I don't know if it was for herself or for one of the many people in her family, but we looked together on the Knit Picks website back then, way back in the day, and she chose this color. I think that I kind of directed her towards the wool of the Andes because I knew it was like worsted, very simple, 100% wool, and very affordable, which sounded like a good combination, especially for someone who wanted to knit a first-time sweater. I know my grandmother had done a lot of crocheting in the past, but I don't know, there's just something so lovely about working with 100% wool and having a 100% wool sweater or garment. That's just something really lovely, rather than, you know, knitting up your first sweater with another fiber or something that isn't. I think it's just really such a luxurious thing. It feels so luxurious to have a 100% wool sweater. So yeah, we chose this yarn. She chose this colorway, which I love. I don't know if I maybe kind of told her you should get this colorway. I don't think so, because I love her style and I love her taste. So I'm sure she chose it herself. But this is like the colorway that I would have chosen and that I would still choose, I think, because I just think it's gorgeous. It's just this beautiful, dark, rosy mauve colorway, and the name Victorian is so beautiful, and just, I love the colorway name. I also think it's very fitting for the colorway. It's just gorgeous. So yeah, I think it's beautiful, but she never ended up knitting with it. I think we knit a little bit here and there, but I don't know, it just didn't come to fruition. So when I was last there in the States, she gave me this big bag with a couple of other skeins of yarn or balls of yarn and some needles. I think she gave me some needles too. She just said her knitting days were over and that she knew that I love to knit, so she gave me this yarn bag. And I was so excited about it. I definitely want to knit my grandmother something as well, because she also gifted me these things. I knit her a pair of socks last year for her birthday. They're beautiful. I knit the Cornish Cream Tea socks by Helen Stewart, which were so much fun and just gorgeous patterns. So stunning, so ladylike and feminine and wonderful. And I knit them in this kind of, I think it was a cashmere blend sock yarn from Legia. So it was like an affordable little bit of cashmere, touch of cashmere sock yarn. And I just loved the way they turned out. It was a very light pink, pale pink colorway. you can see those socks in past episodes or yeah, on my Instagram as well. But I want to knit her something again, for sure, but I wasn't sure if this color or this yarn she wanted for herself or if it was for someone else. So I decided to take it for myself to knit a sweater with. I don't know, if I feel a little bit almost guilty for that in a way. Is it appropriate to knit myself a sweater with this? I don't know. Maybe I'll knit it and I'll give it to my mom or give it to her. But I definitely know what project I want to knit with this yarn now. And it is the Ballet. Oh no, I think I might not say their name right. I don't have it written out, or I don't have any notes. I'm totally like just talking to you. I'm catching up with you on the fly here. But I think it's the Ballet Wrap Top, I think is the name of the pattern. I'm not sure. It will of course be linked in the show notes properly so you can find it. But it's just a beautiful little wrap top pattern. And I had this on my Make 9 2022 board. And I at first thought I would knit it with a fingering weight yarn and a mohair lace yarn. But the yarn I ordered, the color didn't work out, so I sent it back, and I was a little bit kind of disappointed and just a little bit like just demotivated from the whole thing after that experience. I wasn't sure what to do, but I definitely knew and know that I want this sweater because I think it's so lovely. And right now there's like kind of this little wave. I've been seeing lots of ballet inspired looks, and there's just a really cool ballet vibe. I really like the idea of incorporating light ballet wear into your style, into your fashion, into everyday fashion. And so I love the idea of a little ballet wrap. I just think that's so ladylike and sweet and easy to put on, even just over really casual outfits or like a simple dress, or even for me, later pregnancy and postpartum, if I'm just wearing some like yoga pants or leggings, and almost makes me feel like it's dressed up a little bit. I'm not sure, but I thought this yarn would be a beautiful substitute. I think that the pattern calls for DK weight yarn, but this yarn doesn't look specifically particularly heavy. It looks like a light worsted almost. I could be wrong. Regardless, I'm gonna just knit up a swatch and see what gauge I get and then adjust accordingly. Either if it's too tight with really small needles, then I'll just go ahead and knit a smaller size of the sweater, see if it works, or like the little wrap. I'm not too concerned about it. I think it'll turn out well. Even with this worsted yarn, I think it calls for TK, like I said, but I think it'll be okay. And I just love this colorway. I think it would be beautiful in a wrap top, and I'm going to knit it up. I'm just so excited about it. I'm re-inspired by this yarn, and it was so fun to find it. I just have one big bin full of yarn and crafting stuff. I don't have a very big stash, but I have a few skeins of yarn in there that sometimes if you don't have it right in front of you, you even kind of forget that it's there. So I felt that way about this yarn, and I have 7 of these balls. They're all 50 grams, I believe. Yeah, they're all 50 grams. And so I think that should be enough. Definitely going to be enough for a little wrap top. I wanted to make it long sleeves or 3/4 length sleeves, but I'm excited. And if anyone knows, this is the worsted weight wool of the Andes. This isn't superwash, right? This is just plain wool. I think that it says nowhere that it's superwash. So I think it's just 100% plain wool, which I like. I think I prefer that to superwash for myself in a sweater, just because I think it'll hold its shape a little bit better, and I just love it. So if I knit for someone else, I'd probably want it to be superwash, just so that they can feel comfortable washing it without the fear of it getting totally felted. But oh yeah, that's my next knitting plans. Those are my little plans. Hopefully next time I have it cast on to share with you. I'm really excited about that project, and it's also kind of driving me a little bit with my top, because I feel like the top project I don't know if I'm gonna get very much wear out of it as my belly grows, and the weather is getting warmer, but it's not super hot. So this is definitely more of a late summer kind of a top. And so I'm thinking fresh when I have the baby, I'll be able to wear it quite a bit in August and, beginning of September. But I don't have that rush of like, oh, I want to wear this piece right away. It's a very slow process with this top. So this is kind of, this ballet wrap is kind of the driving force, kind of like yeah, the fire that's burning that one out of the construction, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if that makes sense at all, but anyway, those are my knitting projects. So if you're just here to hear about knitting, I already have finished talking about it, which is crazy, but I have more things to share with you. I am quite chatty, so I'm going to be chatting with you for a few more minutes about other things. So if you're interested, stick around. I am now going to share with you my sewing adventures. Oh my word. I don't know what's come over me. I'm just in sewing frenzy. So last week I shared with you that I had borrowed my mother-in-law's sewing machine. My mother-in-law sews often. She's an avid sewist. She sews for my daughter and for herself, and she sews a lot of little children's clothes and baby clothes for all of her friends who are having grandbabies, like new grandbabies, and just lots of lovely things. She loves to sew, and she just offered to lend me her sewing machine, as I told her and shared with her that I wanted to maybe kind of sew something for myself, sew a dress. I borrowed her sewing machine, and then I did some digging in my kind of craft box, and I found some tulle that I wanted to make little scrunchies with. As you see, I made a giant scrunchie. I even talked about this project idea in a podcast, I think over a year ago. It was ages and ages ago. And I really wanted to make just one of these giant scrunchies because I had seen them around, and once again, driven by my limited budget, I just thought it would be fun to make them myself because they're often not that cheap to get these beautiful, huge, giant scrunchies, and I didn't know how often I would really wear one, so I just wanted to try out making it myself. And I got some of this fabric, and I tried hand stitching. It didn't work. I had no concept of it, and I kind of gave up really quickly, but I didn't get rid of the fabric, which I'm very thankful for. And so I took that fabric out, and I was like, oh, I'll figure it out. Let's watch a tutorial, and now I'm gonna make my giant scrunchie. And that's exactly what I did. I found an amazing tutorial, which I will also link in the show notes. It was super easy, super simple, and I could just use a hair tie, which I already had. I actually bought these hair ties for this project because they're like blonde hair ties. I have obviously not blonde hair, but so I mostly use like black or brown hair ties. And with this one, I needed a lighter one for to kind of blend in with the color and to not show up through the pink. And yeah, I'm just so pleased with this giant scrunchie. It was the easiest thing to make. Obviously, I'm a beginner. I am truly a beginner. I'm not like, I have very little experience, but to say I'm a complete novice would also be a little dishonest because I have done sewing here and there over the course of my life. My paternal grandmother is an avid quilter, and she quilted with me a little bit when I was a little girl. I remember watching her, and so I learned from her, and then when I was a teenager I did some sewing. So I kind of know some basic skills. Like I know basically how a sewing machine works and kind of certain concepts, but there are huge gaps in my knowledge, and so for all intents and purposes I'm definitely a beginner. And for a beginner, this was the perfect beginner project. It was so quick, so easy. I got practice in with the machine, kind of got to know the machine a little bit, and got comfortable with it, and just had this amazing quick project so fast. So if you have a sewing machine or you have access to one and you want to try out something small, I highly recommend this project. It was just so much fun, and I love the result, and I've been wearing it so much. I think it's just so fun and cute and like princessy. I love a little bit of princess in my life, and so I'm super happy with it. Don't look too closely because it's very imperfect, but I'm really not a perfectionist, and you will see that as well with my sewing project in a moment. And so I don't mind as long as it kind of does the job. I even like a bit of that handmade touch, handmade charm. I think it adds to the whole experience. Yeah, so that's my first project. That's the first thing I made. And after that, I felt confident and with renewed inspiration to really go for my idea of sewing a dress. So my mother-in-law took me to a local fabric shop, and we did some perusing, and she had me choose some fabric that I would want for my daughters, for some little clothes and outfits for my daughters, because she's going to be sewing them little outfits. which is so sweet and adorable. She got the sweetest, cutest fabric for them, for the one on the way and for Esmeralda. And then I chose some fabric too, which is really exciting. So I decided to go for a double gauze muslin because that was recommended to me by my mother-in-law, and then also other people as well mentioned that that was a good idea for a beginner. Something without stretch, something simple, and so I got this fabric, which you'll see as I share with you my progress so far on my top. I'm gonna be honest, I feel almost embarrassed to show you because there are so many flaws, but this is my very first real proper dress, so I don't even care. I've, over the past year or two, I've even like enjoyed watching sewing channels on YouTube and seeing what people make for themselves. I've loved watching Lisa from And So On, who if you sew at all, or even if you're a knitter, you probably have watched her channel. She is just so lovely and bright, and she makes such cool things, amazing outfits, and also she's a knitter, so she knits a lot as well. And so I started watching her because she had knitting content, but then I would also end up watching her sewing content. I remember like really being into watching her make this kind of loungewear capsule, I think it was, and she has these little like capsule videos, which I really like little capsule wardrobes. I remember watching one that she had for a vacation she took, this kind of like capsule handmade wardrobe for a vacation or a holiday trip, and that inspired me so much. I loved that idea. I've always loved the idea of little capsule wardrobes. I read this book called Lessons from Madame Chic a few years ago, and she talks about the 10-item wardrobe in the book, and I loved that idea. And so ever since then, I've kind of been into kind of trying to curate a wardrobe that I really love and having just minimal pieces, a small number of pieces that I really treasure and wear a lot. And I have very limited space in our apartment, so having a small number of clothes is kind of necessary, but also making them really cool, intentional pieces that I love is something I also think is wonderful. So I loved seeing the idea of a handmade, hand-sewn capsule. I just thought that was so cool. And I have to like restrain myself from even like mentally committing to the idea of, yeah, I'm gonna now like sew my own capsule wardrobe. I'm gonna sew myself like a collection for spring and summer, because first of all, I'm not skilled enough, but second of all, I think I just have to go one project at a time. I tend to sometimes bite off more than I can chew when it comes to new, fresh like hobbies. So I'm just trying to go take it slowly and just enjoy the process little bit by bit. So yeah, I'm just gonna show it to you now. This is the fabric I chose, and this is what I have so far. You probably can't even tell what it is, but here's the fabric. It is a beautiful, oh, here it has the sleeve I've stitched already. It's like a beautiful muslin with embroidered floral texture, and I would describe this color as kind of like a terracotta, yeah, like a warm orangey terracotta, a little bit of almost like a dark pumpkin-y color, and I really like it. I think it's a color that I'm going to love wearing, especially in the later summer, early autumn, but all through the season I think it's beautiful. And kind of neutral and earthy, and I love that. I'm gonna definitely feel comfortable wearing this light, airy muslin in the forest, because we spend a lot of time out there, or just, you know, wandering around, taking walks, being at home, working from home. It's just kind of an all-purpose wonderful dress, I think it will be for me. And the pattern I chose is the Poppy Dress by Hubbading. I don't know the pattern designer's real name. I forgot it. I think it's Kate, I think. But Hubbading is her kind of handle and her little company name. And the Poppy Dress is just a really fun dress. Actually, I love so many of her dresses, and I want to make actually a lot of them, but I thought this dress would be specifically good. I was kind of torn between this one and a couple of others for my first project, but I thought it would be good because it's a wrap style, and I wanted a wrap dress. That was my first inspirational, like the first one I really wanted, because I think that it can be good with a growing belly, but also because in postpartum, I know that that's also a stretch of time that I need good transitional clothing for, and a wrap dress is just perfect for nursing or just for wearing when like my body is kind of still in adjustment from pregnancy to non-pregnancy. Yeah, it's maybe boring for those of you who like don't have that in your world, but that was something I learned with my first baby. Just that postpartum was so different than I expected it to be, just like with clothes, because you have all these maternity clothes that you wear like for your big stomach, your giant belly, but then once that's kind of gone, because you have the baby, you need a different kind of clothing style that's also not maybe necessarily the same. For me, it wasn't the same as the clothing I wore before I got pregnant, so I definitely had a size adjustment, but also just having something comfy, but also something pretty, because I just think it's important to feel pretty. For me, it's really important to feel pretty and to feel kind of somewhat put together, even in those times like postpartum times, maybe even especially in times like postpartum, because yeah, there's just so much going on and it's such a big change. It's nice to feel, for me, I feel really good when I'm like fresh and feel like cute. So I think this will be a good dress for that too, but it's definitely imperfectly stitched. So right now I have the top part, the sleeves are attached to the front bodice part, which is, you know, these two pieces. The bands are attached to those pieces too, like wrap ties. And then there's the back bodice, and oh my gosh, it was such an experience to sew this up because, well, first of all, not even the sewing part. The first thing was cutting out the fabric. So cutting out the paper, like the fabric pattern pieces, that was one thing. That was okay. That wasn't so hard. That was kind of like that was just so doable. I knew what to do. It was super simple. I just took my regular scissors and I cut the pattern pieces out on my size. Okay, like that was fine. Then getting to the fabric cutting part, that was when it started to get challenging and where I started to learn. And I think that's where I was really thankful to have my mother-in-law with me, because she really helped me be precise and make sure that I did things properly and right, and really kind of was as, you know, conscientious about the fabric I was using as possible, as far as not wasting fabric, cutting properly, just not randomly willy-nilly on the fabric, and being really careful and intentional. She's really someone who is so good at being detail-oriented and a perfectionist, and because I'm not that way, I'm not always very detail-oriented and not really a perfectionist, I really think that she probably saved me from quite a few mistakes just in that cutting out of the fabric part alone. So I was so thankful for her help, but it was such hard work and it took so long. I did not expect it to take so long. I was surprised at how tired I was at the end of it. I think I needed like 3 hours to cut out all the pattern pieces. And I think that's normal, probably, I don't know, probably not. I have no idea. But it took me longer than expected, and I was like, whoa, that's hard work to be cutting out all the pieces for a giant dress. It was just like, I was exhausted, but I loved it and I was super excited about it. And after that, I think that was like for me the hardest part of the process. Because the sewing part I've been doing in bits and pieces as I have a free half hour here and there, and that has been going well. I'm also taking it slow, as I love to do in my life and in my crafting, and it's going well. I mean, it's coming together, it's working. Obviously, don't look too closely. You can definitely already see, look, someone didn't stitch very super straight. You definitely see my lack of perfectionism in that and my lack of experience, but I really don't mind. I think it's okay, and I also think the way it's going to drape after I wear it is going to be fine and kind of hopefully mask that a little bit. But as I continue and I encounter different issues, maybe I'm going to have to compile a list of questions to ask those of you who have experience with garment sewing. Because I feel like I've done a couple of things wrong and I don't know what they are. But like this seam is clearly like not straight. It's like I've just not sewn it straight. And I don't know if I cut it out a little bit wrong. I'm not sure. But I'm really happy with the project. I'm really happy with the dress so far. And that's another one I hope to have on in a podcast soon. I really think it would be so cool to just wear my own handmade dresses. What a great feeling and what a cool accomplishment. I just think that would be so exciting. So that's my sewing project of the moment, my very first dress, and we'll see if it's my very last dress. I don't think so. I honestly have my eye out everywhere for fabric. I've been looking kind of like on our local classifieds, kind of like, I don't know, here in Germany it's like a version of eBay, which is kind of like the eBay classifieds, and that's where mostly people post things that they're selling. I think in the States it's like Facebook Marketplace is often used and people buy stuff there. I've just been checking online and seeing if people are giving away old bed sheets. I've seen so many cool dresses with bed sheets, and I want to try it out at some point. And I've just been looking if people are selling old fabric. I've been keeping my eye out for little sales on fabric. And yeah, when this is done, I'm gonna just start on another sewing project, which is really fun. So that's all I have to share with you crafting wise today. I think that's it. The sewing project definitely took more of my energy and my mental kind of capacity this last couple of weeks, just because I've been thinking about it, dreaming about it, cutting it out, sewing. Like, I'm sewing super slow, little piece by piece, but I'm enjoying it so much. And yeah, it's just gonna be an adventure from the beginning to the end. I love it. It's so much fun. Let me know if you've sewn your own clothing before. I'd love to hear about your experience or any advice you have for me. I would love advice. Give me any advice. I'm so thankful for all of the pattern designer suggestions, and yeah, I've been so inspired by looking at different sewing patterns too. It's kind of dangerous because I already am looking at knitting stuff all the time, and now to add sewing to it, it's a little bit dangerous, but also wonderful because I already think I might even knit a second version of this dress at some point. I really like the pattern. We'll see how it wears and how I feel in the dress, but if I like it, I think I'd sew it again because it's really a good pattern for a beginner. I really feel very confident and comfortable sewing it as a beginner, and yeah, I just love it. Other than that, as I've mentioned before, spring has sprung. Right now the sun has just come out. It was raining all morning long, and I'm so excited. When Esmeralda wakes up, we will go out. Right now there are these kind of fields where you can go and pick your own flowers, and then you kind of put money in a little box to pay for the flowers that you pick yourself. And we love doing that all through the season of spring, summer, and autumn. I'm not a flower gardener. I was a florist, but I don't know how they do it. Like, for now all the tulips are coming up, so I guess they have like tulip bulbs in there. I don't know when or how they plant that, and then they time it, so then next in this, like a field right next to it, there's like another flower, and then like switches. It's just super cool. So there's always flowers there to go in and pick. We love going there. It's so fun to wander around and gather flowers just to bring home and create our own little arrangements with. And right now it's just tulip season. Obviously it's tulip time, but I love that. I love going to pick our own tulips, and we're going to go again, I think tomorrow, to go and get just a big bunch of tulips for our Easter celebration, which is this Sunday. I'm so excited about. If you celebrate Easter, very happy Easter. I hope that you have a wonderful, lovely celebration. Easter is my very favorite holiday from a spiritual perspective, but also I just love the springtime. I love everything about Easter. It's like the most hopeful, wonderful, joyful holiday to me. So I'm really excited about it. And we're going to be making grüne Soße, which is a special kind of delicacy, a special dish from this region of Germany, Hessen. There are two versions of it that I know about. One of them is from Frankfurt, so the Frankfurt version, and one of them is from Kassel, which is like the Kassel city version. And they're a little bit different, and my husband always grew up eating the Kassel version, but I also really like the Frankfurt grüne Soße. So if you're German and you know what I'm talking about, or you're from Hessen, you can give your opinion on this. I feel like no one else will know, but it's basically a dish which is kind of like made with like dairy, like yogurt or sour cream, or there's like different kind of cream, and then eggs and 7 specific herbs that are also from this region mostly. And it's kind of blended up into this sauce, or like this kind of it's almost like a cold soup even, you could say, and it's served with potatoes. And so we're going to be making that to celebrate. I make it every year, and because I am mostly plant-based in my diet, it's been about, almost 10 years that almost like 11 years or 12 years that I've been mostly plant-based. I make a plant-based version, and it's just so excited to eat this dish. I love it. I already made it once this season. It's so good, and I'm so excited to make it again and to enjoy all of the herbs. It's just so fresh and so like wonderful and so delicious to have in the springtime. I think I don't know, I just crave herbs. So I'm so excited for that dish. And that's gonna be a very special way that we celebrate also the coming days and Easter and everything. So yeah, oh, I feel like I've really been so chatty today. So I'm not going to keep you any longer. Thank you so much for joining me for this podcast. It's been so lovely to have you. Until next time, I hope that you have a wonderful week or a couple of weeks full of knitting and making, and just whether you're going into autumn or you're going into spring, that you enjoy those changing seasons, or if you're somewhere that's kind of having one climate, or you're somewhere that's still stuck in winter. As I know for my mom and my siblings in Chicago, it's still so cold, that you just enjoy the outdoors in whatever way you can. I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.